So there are a lot of brands out there that we've never probably really heard of, more affordable laptops, and I wanted to find out, are they actually any good? This model here that retails for around about 660 US dollars is the DERE V9 Max. It's a 15.6-inch laptop with a 1440p screen, backlit keyboard, large touchpad, and an all-metal build. It is powered by the Intel 11th Gen Core i7, the 1165G7, and it does have 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 512 gigabyte SSD. So spec-wise, it seems pretty good, right? So there must be some areas where they've cut back, right, to reduce the cost of these machines. And is it a machine that's going to run into issues? Well, I want to cover that in this video here, and I'll check out the performance of this model and let you know all the pros and cons, and if a more affordable Core i7 laptop like this is worth it or not. Inside the box you will find a power cable. It is that Mickey Mouse style plug, very common, easy to source, and it's a 65 watt power supply, small compact size, DC, not type C unfortunately. So I did want to see what the weights are. The laptop, it is 19 millimeters, the thickness of it, but what about its weight? Check that out now. So it does weigh, as you can see there, 1.67 kilos for a 15.6-inch laptop. Isn't bad, but what is the total travel weight with our power supply? Just over 2 kilos. Again, not too bad considering the size of it. The V9 Max has an alloy build to it, so the lid here, when you press down, there's a bit of flex, and the hinge feels okay, but you need two hands to open this up. So it feels stiff enough to me, hasn't loosened off. We've got alloy right here, alloy on the underside, and the keyboard, it is nice to type on. It's not bad. They don't feel like high quality keys, all the feedback from them. The backlighting on this keyboard, it's actually on level 2 at the moment, is not very bright. And what I don't like about it is the paint job, that they've gone with silver keycaps, and then the white letters can make it very difficult. I look right here and just the way the light's reflecting to see the tab and caps lock and shift here, it's very difficult. So that's one area I hope that the next model, they can just give us a normal size black keyboard with black keycaps. Touchpad, all right, nice and large. It's got a built-in fingerprint reader that does seem to work well, but finer movements I have noticed with this touchpad, you need to press a little harder. It's a usable touchpad, but now and then the gestures just don't work. So of course it does support Windows 11, gestures there, fine. It's just some of the finer movements. It can be a little frustrating, this touchpad, and I'm definitely using a mouse. Port-wise now, on the right-hand side, we have our DC into power and charge it, USB 3.0, HDMI 2.0, so this is 4K 60, and we do have a full spec Type C. So it supports power delivery and video out, 4K 60, and USB 3.1 data. So that's good to see they've got a proper spec Type C port. And on the left side, we do have a gigabit LAN, 3.5 millimeter audio with microphone support, another USB 3.0, and an SD slot there. So the SD cards, unfortunately, this reader is only USB 2 spec, so it's not ultra high speed. Looking at the underside here, you'll see that we've got an easy access hatch, so 2 screws, you can replace the SSD. So it's SATA 3, 512 gigabytes. I'll give you those speeds soon in this review. 2 downwards firing speakers, rubber feet here. This is the intake, and there is, or was, a rubber foot here at the back. Now, I've removed it, which is easy enough to do, because if you want to gain access to the internals, there are 2 screws you need to get below that rubber foot. So once you do that, unscrew all of the screws, it just lifts off. It's very easy to gain access to the internals. However, it's not looking good at all, because we have just a single SODIMM slot, so we're missing out on dual channel RAM. And to top it off, this RAM speed isn't even the correct RAM speed. It's a little too slow, really. It's 2,666 megahertz. This chipset does support 3,200. It is 16 gigabytes, so that's good, but yeah, just the single channel. And you do have a slot right here to install another a SATA 3 M.2 drive, but there is no mounting point for it. There's no screw. So you're going to have to use double-sided tape or another form to secure it in place, which is not ideal. Wireless card, not upgradable. It is right there, soldered onto the motherboard. two cheap speakers either side, which do have two speakers within them. So in total, we've got four little speakers, but they're not great. I'll give you a sample of them later on. And our battery capacity, rather small, 45 watt hours for such a powerful chip. It only goes for around about 4 hours. A lot of free space around here, free space here too, a little bit at the front. So they could have, I think, put a larger battery in this. So disappointing battery life, disappointing with the upgrades, and for me, the single SODIMM slot. We're missing out on, of course, that important RAM bandwidth. And onto our screen. So we do have a top and left and right bezel. That's pretty good. It's nice and slim there. Large bottom bezel. The webcam, you can barely just see it, but it's located down in the bottom left-hand corner here. Terrible location. It's not a good webcam at all. I'll give you a sample of it just after this. However, the screen, amazing. It really is for the price tag. This is a good screen. It's probably better than a lot of laptops you see that cost 3 times the amount of this one. So we have with it 100% of P3 coverage with the color gamut here, 88% Adobe RGB, NTSC is 86%, sRGB 100%. So wow, that's amazing really for this type of laptop, being an affordable Core i7 laptop. Brightness, however, is not super good. It's an anti-glare coating, the IPS we do have, resolutions 2560 by 1440p, but it's only 252 nits maximum brightness, which for indoor use with the anti-glare coating holds up. It's perfectly fine, but if you are in really bright environments, you may struggle a little bit. But definitely a great screen that is in this laptop, and I just blown away. I did not expect that to be as good as it really is. So here's a sample of our webcam and microphone, and as you can see, the quality is downright awful. The location of it, as I pointed out when we looked at the screen, the bottom left-hand side is not good. So it kind of looks up your nose, and it's right to one side. So normally you'll be about positioned here with your head looking at the middle of the screen. So you're always going to be to one side. So you definitely want to be using an external webcam with this laptop, the V9 Max. This laptop does come with Windows 11 Pro, and we have 15.7 gigabytes usable. So there is just a small portion that is dedicated to the Iris Xe graphics. Of course, it's scalable, so we'll end up using more when it does need it. So this particular laptop with the Core i7, the 1165G7, it feels quick and snappy. So basic computing tasks like spreadsheets, documents, I won't go over because it's pretty straightforward that the performance is going to be good here. It is fast and snappy, even though it's, yes, only running in single channel configuration with our RAM. So it does have 4 cores, 8 threads, 4.7 gigahertz is the max turbo, 28 watt part. It's still reasonably good, even though now it's getting a little old, but it's a big step up from what we had before with the 9th gen and the 8th gen. Performance-wise, Geekbench 5, you can run this on your own laptop. You can install it. It's free. Run the benchmark, compare it to see if this is faster, or maybe it could even be slower. A single core score there isn't too bad, but it could be faster because of the RAM situation. Same with the multi-core score there. And Cinebench R23 did run that, of course. And performance it's all right. I expected it to actually be a little bit slower after 10 minutes of continually looping it, especially with that multi-core score, but it didn't do too bad. It seems it's not really affected too much by the single channel RAM, at least with that particular benchmark. Now in the device manager, our SSD, no idea what brand this is. As you can see, it's a G535NW, 512 gigabytes. The speeds of it aren't actually too bad. SATA 3, however, so it would have been great if it was a PCIe SSD, which would be a hell of a lot faster than this, but that's what we do have. At least it's 512 gigabytes and not small like 256 or something. So reasonable performance from it. Now dated Wi-Fi AC, it really should be Wi-Fi AX. If you ask me, the AX201 is actually quite a cheap card. It's only about $8 to buy it, but again, the motherboard only has this one on, so non-upgradable, sadly. Focal Tech is the fingerprint reader, which is in the top left-hand corner of the touchpad that I showed you before. Seems to work all right. Sometimes it can be a little slow, but no, overall, it's not too bad, faster than typing in a password. And of course, you see Iris Xe graphics, which I'll get onto later on in this review here. So nothing else really of interest in there when it comes to the device manager. So general performance is good, quick and snappy, but what about video playback? Now, the jellyfish file that I always test out, normally, and there it goes, it does the little choke, the stutter at the start. Once it gets going, it then seems to smooth out, although it takes a little while longer here. Oh, and still dropping frames. So that performance just straight out with native Windows, their movie and TV player, is finally working good. But wow, that was about 10 seconds of continually just dropping frames, which is not good to see. Now this file I found tends to play a little bit better, but again, dropping frames at the start. Just go full screen with it. This is 4K 60, HEVC by the way. Once it's going, yes, it is fine then, and it looks like really it's not dropping any frames now with video playback, demanding files that is. Then what about 4K 60 playback? This is always demanding, and normally you get a lot of dropped frames. I do hope my internet connection's going to keep up with this, so just make that full screen, and it seems to be doing okay. So enabling the stats here, you will see that dropping frames, yes, continuously. Every second it's dropping, well, about 4 frames, even more sometimes. The laptop has those 4 downwards firing speakers, if you saw that clip of the internals. They're not huge, they aren't really high quality speakers at all, as you can imagine, but they do make up what they lack in, at least quality, in volume. So they're pretty loud, they're not bad, and you should be able to hear at least presentations and things through these laptop speakers. Here's a sample of them at 100% volume. And a very quick look at gaming. So we know what this particular Iris Xe graphics can do if it's in dual channel and the RAM's running at the correct speed, because remember it's only 2666. If it was dual channel 3200, we could probably get about 40, 50, maybe even 60 frames per second here. So it's certainly underperforming because of the RAM speeds, which really does affect that Iris Xe graphics. So it's just all up disappointing here, because it should be just so much better than what we are looking at right now performance-wise. It's laggy, so not really, I would say, for gaming, even though they do advertise that, because it's simply just too choppy. 1080p that is right now with GTA 5. So you probably want to lower the resolution down to 720p to get a better, more playable frame rate. Finding my little Linux test here. So Linux Manjaro is running just fine in it. I have internet connection, drivers, everything seems to be working, including all of the audio controls. The display out is also working, HDMI out, and Bluetooth, all of that. Touchpad works. So it seems to have all of the drivers there, so that's great. So that brings me on to the final thing, which is the battery life. Unfortunately, it's only a 45 watt hour battery, which for a powerful 28 watt part that's in this, the Core i7, is simply not enough. It's not sufficient battery capacity. It will only run for just scraping over 4 hours. And now that is with the brightness set to, by the way, 30%, and me just doing relatively light tasks. So the battery life is not impressive at all. So all up, a laptop like this, to answer the question that I was asking at the start, is it worth it? It is and it isn't, because there are definite areas where things could be better. Like, for example, the keycaps being silver makes the keyboard a little hard to see. The touchpad is okay, but it's not amazing, and it skips sometimes with the finer little movements. When you're using it, the cursor can jump about, which can be a little bit annoying. Webcam quality, as you saw, was terrible. It does get a little hot, but we see that, or I'm seeing that with a lot of the other Intels around that, and the performance isn't too bad, but as I pointed out, it's only single channel RAM. So there's lots of areas of compromise. It will cover those basics. You'll be able to do and edit even video files at 1080p or even 4K if it's just basic edits. The screen is one area that I was not expecting. It really did surprise me. Whoa, that screen is actually really good for such a laptop at this price point. Even laptops that I've reviewed that cost well over $2,000 won't have the kind of color gamut coverage that you do get with this panel. But it's only around about 250 nits, the maximum brightness, which for indoors use is still actually fine. So there are so many things going for it, but then there's a lot of cons against it there. So it really just depends on your budget, what you're after here. So that is the DERE V9 Max, a 660 or so US dollar Core i7 15.6 inch laptop. Thanks a lot for watching.